Welcome to Sunday worship. We're so glad you're here. We are a Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregation of people of diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your path, may this be a place of rest and restoration on your journey. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, welcome. Welcome on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. If you are visiting, please let us know in the chat box. And a big welcome to people calling in. We're so glad you're here. I'm Reverend Jessica Clay, the minister of First Parish Brewster. Happy to be welcoming you to the service this morning with Twinks Hastings, our Lifespan Religious Education Director on tech support. Welcome to worship this morning. It's so good to be together. If you have a chalice nearby, you can prepare it for our chalice lighting. Our chalice lighting this morning is "This is Our Home, but Not Just Ours" by Laura Bogle. We gather here to remember that this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these old mountains that hold us steady to our ground, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place. The wilderness and tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. The Wampanoag, the settlers, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the explorers, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, and the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember that this is our home, but not just ours. Our opening hymn this morning is "Love Will Guide Us." You're invited to sing along with the video.
Will lead the way.
And so with love guiding us, we come to this service carrying many things on this morning, carrying hope, carrying joy, and also carrying sorrow and heartbreak. We will now enter a time where we will share our concerns first and then our joys in the chat box. I do have a sorrow to share with you before we begin, though. I found out this morning that First Parish Brewster member Dick Guernsey passed away last night. So we mourn his passing. Him and his wife, Marilyn, were beloved members of this congregation for a long time. And I just want to give thanks for Judy Jolette, who sat with him on Friday night and told him how loved he was by this congregation. So just want to give thanks for that, and for all the members of our pastoral care and helping hands team and the wider circle that holds our people when they are facing transitions. So we just hold the memory of Dick tenderly in our hearts this morning and give thanks for his presence in this congregation and for being able to know him and love him. And so Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale compasión. Sopla al volar, sube la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Our first reading this morning is from this book. When the light of the world was subdued, our songs came through. This is a Norton anthology of Native Nations poetry. And our first poem is titled My Industrial Work, and it's from an anonymous Carlisle student. And I want to show you the Carlisle School while I tell you a little bit about this. So hold on one second. Hold on. How do I go into? There we go. The military-style Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, was founded by Lieutenant Colonel Richard Henry Pratt in 1879 as a tool of assimilation. Known for its infamous motto, "Kill the Indian and save the man," the school recruited more than 10,000 children from 141 tribes. Many suffered and died from poor conditions at the school. 186 graves can be found there, and more are still being located. And this anonymous poem is noted as written in 1913. And this is a picture of the school and children at the school. Now I will share the poem. My industrial work. At 2:30 in the afternoon, you can find me in the 28 room, about 3 of 4 covers deep. You turn them back and you'll find me asleep. And there I lie and patiently wait for the final exams we have in room 8. When the whistle blows at 5:30, once more I am up and still alive. Then I run down and wash my face, then comb my hair, and I'm ready for grace. In 15 minutes, there's a bugle call. The troops fall in and the roll is called. Then out in front, the troops all stand, saluting the flag with our hats in our hand. While standing in the wind, our hair gets wavy. But just the same, we right face and march to gravy. Now this may sound like going a-fishing, but this is my only industrial position. Each week we have the practice of splitting our plate. Half of what's collected goes to the work of First Parish and half goes to a worthy organization. Our community organization this week is the Tree of Life Educational Fund. Palestinian families and their Jewish Israeli neighbors value education. They want jobs to support themselves and to contribute to their country's economic progress. Tree of Life offers scholarships for students with the most financial need. They work in partnership with the Al Road Cultural Center, and also the Middle East Children's Alliance assists Tree of Life with scholarships for students in Gaza. Today we ask you to donate towards the work of this important organization that's making a difference in many families' lives. There are a couple ways you can give today. You can text to give, the number's in the chat box, or you can mail a check to the church made out to First Parish Brewster with split plate and today's date. You can also donate on our website. However you choose to give, we give thanks for your generosity this morning. The offertory will now be gratefully accepted. And during the offertory, we have a video from Anblig, our pianist. Our next reading from the same book is from Linda Lagarde Grover, who is a member of the Anishinaabe tribe and is an enrolled member of the Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe. She is a memoirist, fiction writer, and a poet. She has received numerous awards, including the Flannery O'Connor Short Fiction Award and the Northeastern Minnesota Book Award for Poetry. She is a professor of American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota Duluth, researching the effects of government Indian education policy on children and families. And this poem is titled, Everything You Need to Know in Life You'll Learn in Boarding School. Speak English. Forget the language of your grandparents, it is dead. Forget their teachings. They are ungodly and ignorant. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Indians are not clean. Your parents did not teach you proper hygiene. Stay in line. This is a toothbrush. Hang it on the hook next to the others. Do not allow the bristles to touch. This spreads the disease that you bring to school from your families. Make your bed with mitered corners. A bed not properly made will be torn apart. Start over. Remember and be grateful that boarding school feeds and clothes you. Say grace before meals. In English. Don't cry. Crying never solved anything. Write home once every month. In English. Tell your parents that you are doing very well. You'll never amount to anything. Make the most of your opportunities. You'll never amount to anything. Answer when the teacher addresses you in English. If your family insists on and can provide transportation for you to visit home in the summer, report to the matron's office immediately upon your return. You will be allowed into the dormitory after you have been sanitized and deloused. Busy hands are happy hands. Keep yourself occupied. You'll never amount to anything. Books are our friends. Reading is your key to the world. Forget the language of your grandparents. It is dead. If you are heard speaking it, you will kneel on a navy bean for 1 hour. We will ask you if you've learned your lesson. You will answer in English. Spare the rod and spoil the child. We will not spare the rod. We will cut your hair. We will shame you. We will lock you in the basement. Learn from that. Improve yourself. You'll never amount to anything. Speak English. And so, as we reflect on those readings, which are hard to hear, we reflect on the news that came out of Canada this summer that has also been hard to hear, and it's news that Unitarians are connected to. I'm speaking of the news of the mass graves of children found at the sites of residential schools run by the Catholic Church for First Nations peoples. One school had 600 bodies within one mass grave alone. The flags were flown at half-mast on Canada Day, and the nation mourned this painful part of their history. And this is part of U.S. history as well. The assimilation of the indigenous people of the U.S. began as early as the 1600s. Missionaries often ran these schools built on the premise that the indigenous people were in need of education. The mission of the Society of Jesus, formed in what is now Southern Maryland in 1634, was to, quote, extend civilization and instructions to his ignorant race and show them the way to heaven, end quote. And at the sites of many of these schools today, the U.S. plans to use the same technology that was used in Canada to look for mass graves. Some of you might be surprised to hear that Harvard had what they called an Indian college on its campus in the mid-1600s. And in 1665, Caleb Chisha-Tayamuk from the Wampanoag graduated from there. And I have a painting of him to show you that is up at Harvard now. There we go. Sadly, he died of tuberculosis 1 year after graduating. George Washington was a supporter of these assimilation schools and of government funding to open more of them. The government most often gave money to religious organizations to run them, thinking that they were made of better moral character. But as we know, and as we heard in the reading we just had, that's not always true. Abuse was rampant at these schools, and many people and generations still carry scars from them. And for the most part, white people, the colonists running the schools, thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were helping to improve relations among white people and indigenous peoples. They thought they were helping to, quote, civilize these children so they could grow up just like them. As we heard, often punishing them if they spoke their tribe's language, making them cut their hair and wear Western clothing, all of these ways of trying to erase their culture. And Unitarians are not exempt from this history. So historically in the US, especially in the 19th century, Unitarians were highly educated. I would say we're still fairly highly educated. And so in the 19th century, they sought to share that education with many free Black people and free Indigenous people at places like the Hampton Institute, Tuskegee Normal School, the Channing School of Barnwell, the Hilo Manual Training School, and the Carlisle Industrial School, which you saw on the picture earlier. Reverend Samuel Atkins Elliott, who would later become the president of the American Unitarian Association for 27 years, wrote his Harvard Divinity School thesis on, quote, the education of Indians. In it, he wrote that indigenous people were savage and in need of civilization. He operated under the premise of white supremacy, that whites were superior, and a paternalistic, benevolent attitude was taken towards indigenous peoples. And this was present among a lot of educated white people of the time. In 1886, Unitarian minister Reverend Henry F. Bond and his wife Pamela were sent by a committee of the American Unitarian Association from Massachusetts to Montana, where they developed an industrial school on the land of the Crow people. So I'm going to show you another picture. This is from the UU world, the way back UU world. Let's see here. So this is from November 15th, 1986, commemorating the 100th year anniversary of the Montana Industrial School, and I'll read the caption underneath it. It says, the Montana Industrial School for Indians was established in October of 1886 by the American Unitarian Association. Founded by the Reverend Henry F. Bond and his wife Pamela, the school, also known as Bond's Mission, was located on a Crow Indian reservation near Custer Station on the Big Horn River. 50 Indian children at the time lived at the school, which taught farming, mechanics, and domestic sciences. Students and faculty posed for this photograph in 1888. The school closed after a decade when the federal government withdrew the $108 per pupil annual subsidy. The buildings were sold to the government for $1. So some of you might have been aware of that little piece of history if you took Beloved Conversations, because that was talked about in Beloved Conversations. But I'm going to give you a little bit more into the school. So while the school was in operation, the federal government funded half of the operating costs, and the Unitarian congregations of the time funded the rest. And the Unitarians saw this as God's work, that they were helping. They had no idea of the harm they were causing because they had all bought into and been indoctrinated into the concepts of colonization and white supremacy. Reverend Bond said the following to the pupils once the school was at full capacity, quote, "You see the work we have done here. The money was given by good people in a great way off who like the Indians and want to do something to help them. And what is this house for? That you may sleep and eat in it. But it is not all. We shall give you a place to sleep and food to eat. We want to show you how to clothe yourselves, how to make good beds and good food and good houses. We will teach you to use your hands in making houses, clothes, and food. You will learn to work on the land and in the shops. We shall teach you to read and write and talk English and to think. You wish to do business with white people, to sell to them and buy of them, and you must be able to talk and write to them. We must make your hearts good. God made you and everything you see. He is very good and wants you to be good. You cannot see him, but you must thank him for what he does for you and must do as he wishes. Your parents and friends can come to see you. We wish them to, but they cannot eat here or stay overnight." End quote. So you can see that he thought he was doing good. And you can hear the problematic messages within the speech. First off, the Crow people already knew how to think, so they didn't need to be taught how to think. They already knew how to be good stewards of the land, how to make clothes, how to build homes. They were just different than the white peoples of the time. And the last sentence is important, that their families couldn't eat there. The Crow were starving. Having many of their lands taken and forced onto reservations, their ways of hunting and gathering food were no longer available to them. They were hungry and desperate, including some families who would go to the school and offer up their children for food. They had nowhere else to go. And the local generals of the area withheld rations from families if they didn't enroll children in the school. Frequently, children ran away from the school trying to return to their families, trying to return home. Once the children came to the school, they were given white anglicized names and told instantly to forget the ways of their people. Dana Capasso Stivers wrote an extensive article about this school, which is where I got a lot of this information, from the Journal of UU History a couple of years ago. And Dana notes in the conclusion that, quote, "We Unitarian Universalists today would do well to learn about and reconsider our historical involvement with the Crow tribe. While we seek to uncover our links and complicity within the genocide of Native peoples and with all types of racial, ethnic, and cultural oppression," that's a quote from a statement at GA one year, "we need to dig deep enough into our Unitarian and Universalist heritage lest we miss the meaning of these hidden elements of our past." End quote. And as we learned from the Reparations Task Force work done last year, it's important to discover our own history, to know it, to let it charge us as we move into the future. I tell you this history not to instill you with shame, but with a sense of responsibility. Responsibility that this is our shared Unitarian heritage. It is our responsibility to continue the work to know our history and to work for Indigenous rights today. 2, if you are white, continue to work to dismantle the ways that white supremacist ideologies are part of our bodies, our minds, and to actively work to dismantle these ideas that have been passed down through the generations. Our opportunities for action can look like continuing to explore our history via the Reparations Task Force, but this time with the Wampanoag. There's a bill of sale stating that they sold us the land that the church resides on for $1, but there has to be more to that story. Action can look like getting involved with our statewide UU Legislative Action Group, UU Mass Action, which has a whole campaign around Indigenous rights. This is a place you can get involved. There are currently 5 bills that UU Mass Action wants us to be aware of, including one on prohibiting Native American mascots in public schools, one for Indigenous Peoples Day, one on an act relative to celebrating and teaching Native American culture and history, 2 to protect Native American heritage, and 1 towards the creation of a permanent commission relative to the education of American Indians and Alaskan Native residents of the Commonwealth. I encourage you to go to the website of UU Mass Action to learn more. Also, I just want to do a little shout out here that UU Mass Action and members of our Social Justice Committee did a large amount of work to change the state flag and seal, which depicted racist imagery, and this finally passed last year. We are called to this work because of our history, because of passing the 8th principle. This is part of that. And because we are all connected in our interdependent web. The work of naming our history is holy, sacred work, as is the work of using that to propel us forward to work for justice for Indigenous peoples' rights. For all the times over the centuries when Unitarians were complicit in or directly caused harm. We speak of building the beloved community. This is part of that work. Knowing that our holy work is the work of justice, of equity, and recognizing when that white supremacist thinking shows up, thinking that a marginalized group of people should do something this way, or that the educated white person in the room has the best ideas. As white people, our job is to listen, show up when we are asked to, and to follow the leadership of those who are most impacted. And to work together as white people, holding ourselves accountable when paternalistic, benevolent attitudes and behaviors occur, to question them as our ancestors should have. May we continue to learn our history and use it to encourage us towards the work to be done. May we not get stuck in shame and guilt, but instead recognize the opportunities before us for action and take them. May we all remember that we are interconnected and responsible for each other, for helping to build the beloved community. This is answering the call of love. With each breath, may this be our guiding work. Amen. And now our closing hymn today is Answering the Call of Love. And all of our hymns except the first one today are from Foothills UU, so a big thanks to them for letting us use their hymns.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our God. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together and by faith we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
And so, as you go about your day, as you go about your week, may you answer the call of love. May you seek to know your own personal ancestral history, our Unitarian and Universalist history, and use that to guide your actions to work for justice in the world. May you remember you are not alone in this work. You are held in this community, and that we are in this together. Amen, and blessed be.